are you doing there? Oh boy, look, there's spikes in this mask. Ooh, creepy. Look, you can see it a little bit better that way. This, if you don't know, this is a screen used prop from the movie that I starred in. Josie Jane Killed the Babysitter, I think is what the title is going to be. What is up, everybody? Hope you're having an amazing day. It has been a minute, and I'm so excited to be with you. Let me just pull this up on my phone really quick just to make sure the tech is working correctly. And let's see. Here we go. Yes, it's working. What is up, Dave? How are you, brother? Good to see you, man. Super awesome to see you, and I can't wait to hang out with you later this month. Are you getting snow right now? Since it's you and I at the moment, it's snowing right now in Saratoga Springs, and are you getting hit with snow too out there in Denver? Hope you're doing well. How have you guys been? It's been a little bit, and I don't know, wintertime, I grew up in Utah. It snows every year. The greatest snow on earth, right? We had the Winter Olympics, all that kind of stuff. And in the wintertime, I just want to hibernate. So I've been, in the mornings, just staying all cozy and warm, reading and studying, and then going and getting William and playing with him when he gets home from school for a little bit. It's just, I just want to just stay in my warm bubble and not go outside. And now that it's snowing again, I'm not excited about that. Dave, you haven't got, it's not snowing right now, so probably tomorrow, whatever we're getting, you might get. So today I want to talk to you guys about, yesterday I posted gathering questions and things like that to talk about origin stories and why every business needs to have at least one origin story, an origin story video specifically for their business. So I'm going to go through that. What's up, Rex? How are you, brother? Good to see you. So we're going to jump in and talk about that. So let's get started. All right, here we go. It is Wednesday, the middle of the week, January 8th. And like I said, it's snowing here in Utah. It's cold. Winter is in effect. And man, so cold. But if you are new here, I am Nick Fitzgerald. I am a storytelling marketer, and I help entrepreneurs and businesses take their stories and experiences and leverage them and turn them into selling more of their products and services through awesome videos that are cinematic, that are compelling, and have an emotional element that draws people to you and connects them with you and your brand. And today we're going to be talking about origin stories, and I'm going to talk about why every single business needs to have at least one origin story video working and living in their business online digitally on their website or their funnel or on YouTube or wherever it might be, why you need to have one. And also I have some questions. I put out a little bit of some feelers to get some questions, and I've got some things that I want to be able to specifically address that some of you have asked in regards to origin stories and videos, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about today. What's up, Dana? How the heck are you? I'm so excited to see you. Some of this, Dana was in my storytelling course last year, at the beginning of last year, and we went through some of this origin story stuff. So some of this might sound familiar to some of you if you've gone through or attended any of my workshops or things like that too. But it's going to be awesome. So first off, what the heck is an origin story, and why should we be using them in business? Okay, basically, an origin story. There's a lot of confusion, there are lots of different names for things, like Russell Brunson calls it like the Epiphany Bridge, but then he also talks about origin stories separately. People get confused and think, well, I did an Epiphany Bridge story. Do I need an origin story as well? All sorts of stuff. It was just like, they get confused because there's so much noise and so many different people calling it by different names. Or things like that it's just confusing for a lot of people. So first off, an origin story is not just, it doesn't have to be one single story. As an origin story is something that tells the story or the journey or the moments or the events that caused or created something new. Okay, so when we think of it from the business aspect, there's a story about why you became an entrepreneur, why you wanted to start your own business, right? There are stories about the products that you created, the idea that you had to sell this thing or create this thing. That's an origin story in itself. The story of how you created the business, that's an origin story. The story of, you going and having a huge breakthrough that led you to change the course of your business or to to serve certain people a certain way. Those are origin stories as well. So there are lots of different kinds of origin stories, but I want to talk about like the fundamental foundational ones today, which are, if you're an entrepreneur, why you got into business, like what you do and why you do it. That's what I want to focus on. But again, these principles apply to all different kinds of origin stories. Does that make sense? What's up, Cheryl? How the heck are you? Good to see you. So with origin stories in mind, with that in mind, my mantra always when it comes to telling stories, especially for our business, is begin with the end in mind, right? So again, when it comes to any type of story or origin story or whatever, you want to begin with the end in mind. What do I want my audience to feel, think, and do after hearing this story? And so you always begin and set that intention right from the very beginning, because without it, you're just going to be wandering off and you're going to tell like 50 different stories, and it's not going to lead the audience to a conclusion or help them out in any way. Okay. So again, if you're taking notes or you're writing this down, begin with the end in mind. Write it down. Always feel, think, and do. Those three things. Okay. So once you have that determined, then the story reveals itself. So let's say we're wanting to tell an origin story about our business, like why we're in business, what we do, just to educate people about us, to bring them into our world. Okay, not making a sale right now, or just indoctrination, bringing them into our world. Okay, so do I have this up? Yes. Okay, we're gonna watch a quick video that is a version of an origin story. So I want you to think. I'll tell you what the feel, think, and do elements of this video were, what the goal was, and then we can watch it together. You can tell me if I hit all those. Okay. So number one, I wanted the audience to feel a personal connection to me. I wanted them to feel like they knew me on a personal level in some way, shape, or form, just to connect with me in any way. Whether they knew me a little bit, that connection is deepened, or they didn't know me at all. Now they know something cool and personal about me. So that's the feel. I wanted them to start thinking about how they want those things for their audience. Like they want to have that connection with their audience. Okay, and then the do, I wanted them to come to me, or come into my world, so that we could build that message or build that connection to their audience together. Okay, so with that said, let's watch this quick video. Some of you have seen this, but we're going to do a quick review. Here we go. One of my fondest memories is going to the movies with my grandma.
Enjoy the show.
She took me to see Return of the Jedi, and I was so excited to see my heroes again. I remember the smell of popcorn, the way that my shoes stuck to the floor. I remember the lights dimming, the music swelling. I remember Jabba the Hutt, Ewoks, Yoda, Boba Fett, the Emperor, Darth Vader dying. Princess Leia in a bikini. The rebels defeating the Empire once and for all. Good beating evil. It was raw and it was real. And I'll always remember the way that it made me feel. I'm Nick Fitzgerald, founder of Friendly Giant Films. Over the last 3 years, I've worked on 13 feature films, a television series, numerous commercials, and TV news, all while learning from master storytellers. My passion is to help others find and tell their own stories. Audiences remember a powerful story, sights, smells, emotions, and who they shared it with. We want your audience to remember those things when they hear your story. So come join with us as we work together to change your world, one story at a time. All right, so that video is now over 3 years old, but still it works, it is effective, and it gets the job done. So after watching that, first off, if you throw me some hearts for that video, if you enjoyed it, and comment if you're watching, whether it's live on the or on the replay, comment where you're watching and tuning in from. 1 second, I'm gonna grab a drink. Okay, so that was 3 years ago that I released and launched that video. It premiered, and it still to this day has an amazing effect. People who come into my world who's like, hey, somebody so and so recommended me, can I see some of your work, or where can I learn more about you, or that kind of thing. What's up, Lance? What's up, Kurt? Happy to have you guys on. When people see that, they absolutely think that it's awesome, just like Dave commented right there, right? They automatically think, I want that for my business. I want that for my audience, and it's so powerful. Now within that, like I told you, the feel. I wanted them to feel a connection to me. I wanted to start thinking about how they want to build that connection or have their audience be closer to them, and then to partner with me, obviously, to execute and build that plan. There were some other things that motives or goals that I had with it as well. This was the first time that I had stepped into the production world for myself. I had worked on other people's things, right? So I wanted to also show that I knew how to technically execute a story, whether that's with the structure, the emotion, all those things, and with the visuals, and then feel the connection to me and all those kinds of things, right? So that is... those are the types of things that you want to be able to have happen when people come into your world. And again, we're talking about origin stories in directed at like telling or bringing people into your world and introducing you and your company, what you do and why you do it. Okay. There are tons of different origin story types for products, for businesses, for coaching, all sorts of different things. Your business is going to have multiple origin stories. If you have multiple products or services, there's an origin story behind every single one of them. But everyone needs to have at least one origin story video in their arsenal working for them all the time. Like my Friendly Giant Films video is doing that for me and has been for the last 3 years, and it does an awesome job. Lance, I'm going up to Wyoming in a couple of weeks. We're going to film some awesome training videos. We're going to put together an origin story, a brand video for him while we're up there too. So like, it's all about being able to position yourself and put yourself out there all day, every day, while you're sleeping, while you're working on something else. You have somebody out there telling your story all the time, okay? So, origin story, that's an example of a good origin story. That was my kickoff for Friendly Giant Films as a production company for business, or helping businesses and entrepreneurs leverage their stories and experiences to sell more of their products and services. Now, with that said, there are lots of components of a good origin story. Now, I don't know how many of you all are superhero, like Marvel movie fans or superhero movie fans, that kind of stuff. But I totally am. I love them. Superman is my favorite superhero. Always has been ever since I was a kid. But like every single one, let's look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU. The first Marvel movie was Iron Man, right? And was in that movie, was Tony Stark already Iron Man? No. He was a billionaire. He was just crazy and all over the place, right? He was a little bit out of control, and then some events happened that caused the creation of Iron Man, where he went out and he saw the destruction that was going on and how he had contributed to it and how he wanted to change that, right? You look at, and then the next one after that was Iron Man 2, but like then we had, I can't remember if it was Thor or Captain America, but like you look at all of those characters. Thor, yes, he was the son of Odin and all this kind of stuff, but he stepped into his greatness in the first Thor movie, and we saw that transformation. Captain America, Steve Rogers wasn't Captain America at the beginning. He was a scrawny little guy that had a lot of gumption and wanted to go sock Hitler in the old jaw, right? But then he transformed and he began and became Captain America, right? So with you and your business, you are that person. You are that hero in that story. Now remember, when you tell your story, your origin story, you're the hero of that story. As you work with your clients, they're the hero of their story, not you being the hero of their stories. But you need to think of the things that go into your origin story. What were the things that led you to make the decision to start a business or to start building this side business if you haven't made that full transition? Or what are the things that have got you wanting to make change and to take the world by the horns, right? So that's where you need to start. I always talk about in my story structure lessons. It's in my Facebook Live Secrets course. Is one of the bonuses. You can go and buy it, and like the price of the course is definitely worth it just to be able to look at my storytelling structure secrets. But like I always talk about how at the beginning of every good story, we get thrown into the conflict very quickly, right? There's some setting up and setting of the scene, but we're introduced to the conflict very quickly. So with you and yourself, think about these things, okay? I want to talk about the first 4 keys to your origin story, okay? I'm going to share these 4 keys with you, and hopefully that they are beneficial or valuable to you. So first off, your story has to be true. Don't fake it or embellish or fabricate your story in any way. Tap into your personal experiences. I'm looking over at some notes here. So that is the first thing. It has to be a true story, because if you make up something and it has a super powerful, high-charged emotional aspect and it really draws people in, if it's not real and people find out, you've lost all your credibility and you're up the creek. Okay? So don't do that. Number 2 is reduce possible confusion that may come by glossing over parts of your story. You need to be clear. Okay? So be truthful and be clear with everything that was going on in your story. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to start your story back on the day that you were born and say, I was a baby at 6 pounds, 14 ounces and 20 inches long. You know, you don't have to go into that far back and share all of those details. But it's like, you know, the story of the example of my Friendly Giant Films video, right? What do I start out with? One of my fondest memories is going to the movies with my grandma, right? True. It's absolutely true. I love my grandma, even though she's been gone for 20 years now, I think, close to 20 years. I still have that connection and that closeness with her, even afterwards. But she took me to see Return of the Jedi, and I was so excited because I was so into Star Wars. You can see, I still am, that I would make my parents call me Luke. And I would refuse to come home or acknowledge or listen to them unless they called me Luke when I was over at my friend's house and that kind of stuff, right? So I was so excited. But then I shared details. I went into all these things, like, which goes into the next key is choose the most vivid moment. Moments where you felt the most pain or are emotionally charged and things like that. I talk about how I remember the smell of popcorn, the way that my shoes stuck to the floor, the lights dimming, the music swelling, the action, the Empire being defeated. All of those things I talked about and shared in that story. And in it, all of those elements, everyone can connect to at least one of those things. Going to the movies, having a good relationship with a grandparent, the smell of popcorn. If you've ever gone to a movie theater, you know the feeling of your shoes sticking, especially if you're a child of the 80s and stuff like that, when it's still bad now, but like it was really bad sometimes. You know, and the light swelling and music dimming. Everyone has experienced at least one of those components. So you get that connection and it builds up and stirs up emotions, memories in their mind and in their heart, right? And then the fourth key is use specific details, sights, smells, feelings, people, emotions. Don't gloss over the details, okay? So again, the 4 keys to your origin story. It has to be true. You need to be clear about it. You need to find the moments where you feel the most pain and the emotion and things like that. And then don't gloss over the details. Be specific in the things that you share. Okay? So those are just really quick 4 keys to a great origin story so you can start to build and think about it. Now, a lot of you have had, I got some questions. I asked for some questions yesterday, and then, where's my mouse? Okay. Then, you know, life happened. I wasn't able to go live last night, but we're live now and doing it. So I want to go over a couple of the questions that came in and answer them. And then if any questions come up during this, make sure to drop them in the comments. I see them right here on my screen, and I'll do my best to address them. Is this making sense? First of all, are those 4 keys valuable or helpful to you? If so, drop me a comment, drop some hearts. I'm going to grab a drink, and then we'll dive into these questions, okay? Good stuff. Ooh, look at it. If you weren't here at the beginning, you can go and rewatch it. This is a screen-used prop in the movie that I acted in. Josie Jane, The Last Girl Scout. Or no, Kill the Babysitter. That's what it's called now, I think. I will release dates, info on when and where you can see it when it comes out. It's awesome. So, okay, Lance says yes. Dana says yes. Thank you. That's awesome. I'm glad that those 4 keys were helpful. So let's dive into some questions. The first question comes from Rex Polanis, who's an awesome dude. I got to break bread with him about a month ago. And he's just an awesome guy. He just moved to Utah from Florida, to Logan, Utah from Florida, which is colder usually than Salt Lake City. Probably gets more snow too. That's a big change, but he's loving it here. So, Rex, thank you first for the question. It says, why should a business have an origin story video, and how can it be useful or used to help my business? That's an awesome, awesome question, Rex. Thank you. Excuse me, I got the hiccups. So, why should a business have an origin story video? First of all, if you saw the Friendly Giant video, you experienced something. Even if you've seen it before, you were reminded of the things that you experienced the first time you see it, like the chills that you got, all that kind of stuff, right? And every business needs to have an origin story video because if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're growing or starting out, you definitely need one. But you don't have the time or the capability to go and speak to everyone all the time and just tell them about you. You go to networking events. If any of you have gone to any event, whether it's networking at like a Chamber of Commerce or like at a big event like Funnel Hacking Live or 10X Growth Conference or anything else where you network and you get to know strangers and other people, you always get asked what you do, right? Oh, what do you do? Where are you from? All that stuff. And you share your story face to face, and they do it, and it's compressed and short. And then depending on if there's mutual interest, then it goes deeper after that, right? You don't have that capability, and nor should you try to make it your priority to do that all day, every day yourself. Okay? A business needs an origin story video because you and I are connected through the internet right now. I'm looking in the lens, you're looking at your screen. It's as if we're looking eye to eye. Many of you who are watching this, we know that we know each other. We've had interactions, you follow me. Or if you're new, you're getting to know me and we're connecting on a personal level. I'm doing all the talking because it's just a one-way thing. I look at comments and stuff, yes. But the quickest way to build a connection to somebody, to a new person, is by being able to look them in the eye. Now, we live in a global world, in the digital age, and we have the opportunity to be able to to talk to somebody. I'm right now. Rex, he's in Utah, but he's not close. Lance is in Wyoming. Dana is in Iowa. Kurt was in Florida. Cheryl's in Boston and Massachusetts. Dave is in Denver and Colorado, right? But we're all connected right now. So when you're doing a live, whether it's a live or if it lives on your website or on your Facebook page or wherever it is, it's there all the time, and people from all around the world can connect to you and look you eye to eye and build a connection. That is the number one reason why you need to have an origin story video. It becomes a personal salesperson. It's you. It's a clone of you that lives and works and breathes all day, every day, holidays, disaster, anything that happens, it's always there and it's always working for you. Okay? You can't pay somebody to do that. You can't afford to go out and do that yourself and just go to events and events and events and tell your story to people in order to get them to go to business. Then you wouldn't have time to do the business with them because you still have to keep on going. It becomes a 100% full-time employee for you that costs you $0 in benefits, in salary, and things. It will, if you work with somebody like me, there's an upfront cost. But the savings that you get of time and things in the future are huge. Now, if you're an established business, you definitely need one as well. I talked about as you're beginning and trying to grow your business, you need to get out there and tell your story. But you don't have the time to do it. This saves you the time, right? If you're established, you don't have the time to go to events. You might pencil in or calendar in 1 or 2 events that you go to a year. But you're marketing and all that kind of stuff, and you're wanting to grow and impact and strengthen your brand and people's connection to you. So the origin story is a necessity because, again, you don't have the time. It's a time saver, and it's a free employee that you never have to pay again unless you put it into an ad or something like that. Okay, you can host it or put it on YouTube for free. You can find other places like Vimeo or Wistia. There's a cost for it, but again, you're not having to pay payroll for it, and it works for you all the time. Okay, let me just check. I've seen some comments coming in. Let's see. Yes, Lance says a clone of me for my system. That is exactly what an origin story video does. Now, how can it be used to help your business? Again, it's a recruiter. It's somebody who brings people into your world. If you have it done strategically and purposefully, intentionally, like what you do if we sit down and we build your origin story, is we have that goal. We begin with the end in mind. What are the results that we need and that we want to have accomplished? We build the story to match and lead people to that. And then you have the other things set up. your website, or a sales funnel if you live in that realm, your social media profiles, whatever it might be. It pulls people in, directs them on how to work with you. So again, it's like having a sales force go out, but you are the salesperson, right? It's you and your personality, or your spokesperson, whoever it is for your company, and they go out. It goes out and brings people and shepherds people into your world so that they can then be introduced to the products and services and buy things from you. Now, what is the best way the origin story is the best way also to be able to really help people build a personal connection with you. When people love you and what you stand for and what you're all about, buying from you becomes like a no-brainer, so simple when they feel a connection. Like, people buy iPhones and stuff because they have a connection to the brand, right? They do all sorts of things like that in different brands. Coca-Cola is another one. Nike, right? We have relationships now with the brands. When they started out, they told stories that got people to buy into them and what they're all about. Oh yeah, and we happen to offer awesome tennis shoes or running shoes or basketball shoes or, that kind of stuff. So when you have your origin story and you build that connection, then it becomes, that relationship is built. And of course, then you say, I offer this. And I'm like, well, that's what I was looking for anyway. Of course, I'm going to partner with you because I know you. Take Lance, for example. He's been using Facebook Live to really get the word out. And he gets calls and calls and calls from his lives. And he's built up a personality in his community. People know him, contractors and stuff know him, and they send his lives to their guys to watch and learn and all sorts of stuff, right? If people have a broken faucet or have a plumbing emergency or just want to get some maintenance done, they now call Aspen Mountain Plumbing and book immediately and get amazing service because they have that relationship with Lance. Right? So that's how it is for your business. You go out, it builds relationships, builds connections to you. And then when you offer something, that's what they were looking for. That's how they found you in the first place. But now they have a personal connection and the sale is much easier. I'm not saying that it automatically closes every sale. No, it doesn't happen sometimes. A lot of times it qualifies people a lot better, prepares them for the sale. But it makes that process, just knocks down another wall. And you didn't have to spend any time doing it with every person that comes into your world, okay? Let me see. I've got a couple more comments. It helps people know, like, and trust you. Exactly. Kathy's got it right on the money. And Lance says it can set you up as the authority of your profession. Exactly. Okay, so Rex, that is the answer to those two questions. Everyone, why should they? Because you don't have the time to go out and be talking and telling your story to everyone all day, every day. This does that for you. And then how can it be used to help in my business? It helps qualify and prepare the buyers, the customers, the audience for the sales and for partnering with you in the future or in the very near future, okay? And like Lance says, people want to do business with friends. This helps build that relationship. Origin stories are all about building relationships. Again, let's take a step back to the Marvel movies, right? Why was Iron Man such a beloved character? Because we saw him go through, we saw the change in him, we saw his passions, we understood why he was doing what he was doing. And yes, he's a superhero and not a business, right? But it absolutely worked. And by the end of Endgame, spoiler if you haven't seen it, put your earmuffs on. I'm going to do a spoiler in 3, 2, 1. When he snaps his fingers, I am Iron Man, and then dies, why do you think so many people cried and lost it and felt such a loss? Because they had that connection. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to have that connection right out the gate all the time with people, but you're going to be way farther ahead in the relationship stage, which makes things all the more easier when it comes to sales, okay? So, let's see. So, Lance had this question. Lance Ball from Aspen Mountain Funding. He says, how do you go about writing an origin story? Where do you start? So we kind of covered this at the beginning. Again, what is our purpose? What's our intention? We'll go through the lens of a plumbing business right now. Let's just say like your tankless water heater systems, right? There's a story and all these things. If you want people to buy and get rid of their traditional water heater and get a tankless system, what are the things that you had happen? Back up. If you want them to buy, replace their old system and put in this new system, that's the action you want them to take. Then you can find the stories about how you researched it, the first time you ever tried it yourself, or what made you want to install it in your home. Even if it was just out of curiosity to see how or if it really worked, right? Those are all things that you can share in an origin story for selling that product, right? When it comes to plumbing as a business, why would you, like, so many people probably get this question like, man, what made you want to do that? You get to do some nasty stuff, right? Everyone automatically goes to the nasty, horrible side of plumbing when they think of it. What made you interested in that? What made you want to work with your hands and to get in the nitty gritty? What made you want to help people in that way, right? There were experiences and things that you shared or you had in your life that led you on the path to opening your own business, right? And then again, you go like, where do you start? Begin with the end in mind. What do you want people to feel, think, and do? And then go back to the 4 keys to a good origin story. True stories, personal experiences. Be clear and don't gloss over things. Choose the most vivid moments. That kind of stuff. The things where there are emotions, whether that's joy, happiness, pain, fear, those kinds of things. And then be specific in the details and in sharing those sights and smells and feelings and people and all that kind of stuff. Those are the elements that you can use to start sharing and writing and building that script. Also, and when you get stuck, or if you get stuck or you don't know where to start, that's where like professionals like me come in to help you and guide you and ask you the right questions to get those details out of you, right? Which I love doing, and it's super fun, and it's just fun to hear people's stories come out, right? So the next question comes from Wendy Schenkel. She's an e-com awesome lady. She's an awesome lady in everything, but like she's crushing it with e-commerce stuff, especially in Shopify. But she asks, how does having an origin story get people to buy stuff from me? And then what things do I need to include? I lost my battery. And my camera just died. So I'm switching over. That is the awesome question from Wendy. How does having an origin story get people to buy stuff from me? Now, again, there are origin stories for different parts and different aspects of your business. I was looking at my other camera. I was just used to doing that. So what you need to do is, again, if you have an origin story for a product or service, then if the object of the goal is to get them to buy the product, then you tell the story about how it was created, why it's beneficial. Don't go into all the features of like, it's got chrome leather, it's gold plated, like don't go into that stuff because people aren't going to buy solely based on that. You can include those things, but don't make that the focus. You need to be able to focus on sharing what problems were in the world before this was created, what problems now are solved, what pain is relieved, those kinds of things. When you focus on the benefits and the problems that it solves, and you share some of the technical aspects of it, then you put those together, and that's how you can sell with an origin story. And again, every business has multiple origin stories. There's always at least, if you have just one product, you have at least 2 or 3 origin stories that you can sell or tell in your business. Okay. Now, so that's how you can use it to sell things. And I had a whole series in the spring of 2019 where I went through storytelling for business, how to use stories to sell different things, and I showed like how it works with real estate and e-commerce and coaching and testimonials and how-to instructional videos and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so I've got lots of examples that you can go and look them up. I'm working on compiling them and putting them into something where you can get them all under one roof instead of having to scroll and search through hundreds of videos. So again, what things do I need to include in my origin story? So aside from the 4 keys, let's take a little bit of a deeper dive, okay, into some of the things. You need to consider these other key factors that make powerful origin stories, okay? First of all, is this making sense? If this is making sense, let me know. Drop some hearts. I'm going to grab another drink because my mouth gets dry in this when I'm talking for a long period of time. But let me know if this is making sense. And then we'll go into these other keys to consider for things to include in your origin story, okay? Good stuff. I thought I had enough battery on my DSLR. I'm like, oh, dang it, when I heard it click off. Yes, great stuff, says Dave. Dave, you're the man. I'm so excited to hang out with you in a couple weeks. And then Dana, good stuff. Thank you. You're so welcome. Thank you for being here. Okay, so other keys to consider when writing or framing or creating an origin story. First, you need to give the audience a reason to care about you. Why do they care about you? Why should they listen to you, right? This is where you have those opportunities to build those emotional, personal connections. Sharing about going to the movies with your grandma, and all of that stuff. All right, as examples from my Friendly Giant Films video. How did you have to prove yourself? What struggles did you have to overcome in order to get to where you're at today? What did you have to prove to yourself? Okay, that's not proving the world wrong. That comes later with the things that you do. But like, how did you have to prove? How did you have to prove yourself, not prove to yourself? What things did you have to do to overcome? Okay, keep things simple and not too extraordinary. I know I said be detailed and things like that, but like don't go crazy with over embellishing or making things too crazy, because people can see through that and it makes you less genuine. Even if it's true, like look at Superman, right? He wasn't always Superman running around. By day, he was a mild-mannered reporter in Metropolis, right? As Clark Kent. And then when he needed to, Superman came out. He wasn't always a Superman, Well, he always had his powers, but he wasn't always Superman, right? So keep your background simple, and don't get too extravagant with everything. You need to build towards that happy ending. You need to tie a villain to your story. Now, that doesn't have to be specifically an individual. It could be an industry. It could be a way of thinking. It could be, if you're in the weight loss or health or fitness, it could be fat or other diets or, whatever it is. You have to identify another villain to your story, right? A lot of the villain in my story is a few things. It's other videographers. It's videographers, because I'm not a videographer. I am a storytelling marketer that connects people. Anyone can point a camera at anything and say that they're a videographer, but it takes skill and mastery to be able to use those things purposefully to guide your audience, right? So like that's one of the villains I create. Other videographers are the villain, right? For my people or in my story. And there are others. It doesn't have to be just one. There could be multiple factors and villains. Just like in the Marvel stuff, every movie has a different villain. Sometimes there are a couple of bad guys in each movie, right? You need to tie it, what you're doing to a villain, something you're fighting against. poverty, freedom, getting out of corporate America, plumbers who take advantage of people and just do whatever the heck they want and charge you whatever they want and hold your house hostage, right? Those are the kinds of things. Those are the kinds of things that you need to identify as villains. You build your character through transformation. Now this is key. Like for me, I have multiple origin stories because I work in different facets of storytelling and video production. But I've transformed. I started out wanting to tell stories for businesses, right? But that just became the stepping stone that led me to shooting news. And then I transitioned to film, and then I was in commercials and TV. And then I stepped back into my purpose now, having learned. I transformed, I grew, and I learned throughout it. Like I said, Superman wasn't always Superman. He always had those abilities, but it wasn't until he was a teenager that he left Smallville, went up to the Fortress of Solitude, and he spent 8 years. I think it was 8 years. 12 years. 12 years learning about his power and his purpose and all that kind of stuff. And then when he came to Metropolis, he came as Clark Kent. He still wasn't Superman, but then he came out, right? So you need to tell the story and the experiences that changed you as you went along. Okay? And then share your failures and missteps as well. It's all because some people are like, oh, I shouldn't talk about. What's up, Dave? What's up, Bob? It wouldn't help your audience to see you as perfect as Superman all the time, right? We resonate with people. We resonate with Iron Man. We resonate with Captain America, with Thor, because we see them fail too. We see them win, but they make mistakes. They do things wrong. They approach things wrong. They are stuck in their own way. They don't change sometimes, or they fight against it. But ultimately, that's what draws us and builds our connection to them even deeper. Okay? So there's that. And then don't be afraid of being vulnerable. And I hate the word vulnerable, especially how entrepreneurs and digital marketers use it. But don't be afraid to share those failures. They are not going to, ruin everything for you. They are going to help you build that connection and become closer and stronger with your audience as a result. They're going to feel more connected to you because you're not always a goddess or a god on a mountaintop who makes no mistakes and dictates how everything works. You're relatable. You make mistakes, you stumble, and you have learned from them. That's why you're up here and they're down here, and you're wanting to raise them up or help them with your experience and your wisdom. So don't be afraid to share it. Be vulnerable in that way. Now, there are 3 triggers in origin stories. This kind of ties in. This next question is from Tammy Reynolds, and she says, is there a system or a list of things that need to be covered? I've been going over a lot of things, but here's just one more level deep, okay? Is this making sense, first of all? If it is, drop me some hearts. I'm going to grab another drink, and then we'll go into these 3 triggers, and then we'll wrap up, okay? Thank you for everyone who's watching so far. You guys are awesome. If you've joined us late, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching and tuning in from, and we'll jump into the next section. One sec. Okay, so the 3 triggers. There are 3 triggers in origin stories, or that become the basis for origin stories. You know how I mentioned, build your character through transformation. These triggers, they're used in every type of origin story for superheroes, but for us as business owners, as human beings, these triggers also are the same. Okay, so you'll fit into at least one of these 3 triggers with any origin story that you have, whether it's the creation of your business or a product or a service or something else. Okay, so the thing is, you're always going to be getting new origin stories as you go. You'll have a core of ones that will always be there. But there are things where your business evolves a little bit and you're going to have some tweaks and changes. That's where the growth of you and your transformation comes in. Okay, so the 3 triggers in origin stories. The first one is trauma. Trauma. Think of, if you don't know superheroes, I apologize, but like think of Batman. Batman was his origin story. The trigger for him becoming Batman was trauma. He witnessed his parents be murdered, and was orphaned at a young age. So he was raised by his butler Alfred, on a huge estate. Money was never an issue. He studied all sorts of combat methods from masters and applied the teachings. And then his desire and love of technology and science and all these kinds of things came together, and he became Batman. That doesn't happen if Bruce Wayne's parents aren't killed, because then he would just keep living life and do whatever he wanted. But it was that moment that triggered him to become Batman down the line. And again, that happened when he was young, and he didn't become Batman until later in his life, right? So you can see that like the triggers don't always have to be something that immediately happens right before. It could be something that happened that sets you on the path, okay? So the first trigger is trauma. Number 2 is destiny. Let's take a step back to trauma. So how does that, okay, yeah, I see the parallel with Bruce Wayne and Batman. How does that work for me as a business owner? For me, mine was trauma that caused me to be an entrepreneur. I got fired. I got fired as a financial advisor because I didn't hit my sales numbers. I was fired, and I had no other choice. I had choices, but like that was the trigger that got me to finally listen to my inner voice and start my business. Okay? So mine was traumatic. I literally lost my job. I had a baby less than a year old at the time, 4 kids, a wife. We had lost all of our savings. We had lost our house a couple of years previous, a year before, right? There were all these things, these traumatic incidents that caused me to change and go on the path. Okay? So there's an example of trauma. Next one is destiny. Now, destiny, when you think of superheroes, Superman is a trigger of destiny. His trigger was destiny. Like I said, Superman always had his abilities. There's a scene in the 1977 Superman when he's a little baby and Ma and Pa Kent get a flat tire on their truck and the jack falls over, but Superman holds up the truck. He always had the super strength. He always had the abilities. But he placed limits upon himself because he wanted to be extraordinary, but he couldn't do those things all the time because it would bring unwanted attention. It would bring scrutiny and fear. It would bring out the fear in other people. There's a scene where he's running along a side of train as it's cruising, and like he runs past it. He always had it, but he couldn't be on the track team or the football team, even though he could score a touchdown every time. He couldn't do that. He placed the limits upon himself. Then he decided to gain a better understanding of his abilities. He left his home at the age of 18 and spent 12 years learning about his power, the people of Earth, and then he went to work serving. So destiny is another trigger. It's some people are just born entrepreneurs or born to change the world, and they've done things and always had that fire about them. But they put limits on themselves. Maybe they held themselves back. They talked themselves out of it. Whatever might be the case. But eventually they put those fears aside and those limits aside, and they learn and they study, and then they go out and serve. How many of you fall into that category, right? So many of you have a passion, something that you've always had, a drive, and it spawned you into what you're doing now. And then the last one is chance. Just a lucky break or things like that. Chance in superheroes, I equate to Spider-Man. So if you don't know Spider-Man, Spider-Man had his abilities forced upon him. He didn't choose them. He didn't develop them, through a desire. It was just a radioactive spider bit him on the hand, and he totally then had powers. Yes, he developed and learned how to use them, and he combined them with his love of science and things like that, and went out and became the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But he didn't choose to become Spider-Man. It was something that was put upon him. So if you think of it in regards to your of a business or entrepreneurial standpoint, maybe you got an opportunity, you found a lucky break to be able to share something about you, or you had somebody who reached out and offered to mentor you to grow, and you develop these things, right? It was something that you weren't necessarily looking for, but life just put it right in your path, and you grabbed on and you ran with it. Okay. And you learn through trial and error. That's how Spider-Man learned as well. He wasn't perfect at shooting his web shooters or swinging around like a Tarzan. He made mistakes, and he learned from it. So those are the three triggers in origin stories: trauma, destiny, and chance. Okay. So with that said, there's one more question I'll address, but it's nothing that goes into tactics or like this level of stuff. But does that make sense? Let's do a quick recap, shall we? There are 4 keys to your origin story. It needs to be true, built from personal experiences. You need to be as clear as you can in communicating the story. Choose the vivid moments. Find the moments where the emotions are high, regardless of what those emotions are, happiness or positive or negative. And then use specific details, sights, smells, feelings, right? The keys to consider: people need to care about you. How did you have to prove yourself? Keep it simple. Don't get too crazy, extraordinary with the story. Build towards that happy ending. Identify a villain or two. Build your character through transformation. Share your failures and your missteps as well. And then finally, the triggers: trauma, destiny, or chance. Okay? So, what do you guys think? Does that answer your questions on why you should have an origin story, at least one origin story video for your business? And why they are important for your business? Let me know if it does make sense. Light me up with some hearts while I grab a drink, and then we'll wrap it up here. Okay. So, with that said, I want to thank you for joining me on this little session. I know it's a little bit longer, but it was necessary to go in. The last question that I got was from Anne Fangio. And she asked if I could get a few people together and show you guys how I work with or walk through getting people's story figured out or flushed out and stuff like that, okay? And the question is yes. And I actually have quite a few videos of me doing that with individuals and being on calls with people and drawing out the story, so you can kind of see how I work with people. So I will share a couple of those. I'll maybe do a live, introduce it, and then we stream the video in, and we watch it together, and we can break it down. So what I'd love to hear from you guys is if that's something that you would want. If you'd like me to do a live where I share a couple of videos of me doing some story work with some clients in the past, like that I have recorded. If you want to see that, drop me, just do hashtag I want to see, and then I can put those together. But then also I'd love to do a little, live workshop possibly, where we get a group of people together and we, over a weekend, we work on people's origin stories. That would be something that I would charge you for. But that would be fun. I also am putting something awesome together for later this month when I'm going to be in Nashville to help people actually do an origin story video with me at a lower cost. Usually I'm charging people around $10,000 and stuff to work on some origin story and to shoot the video for them. But this would be a much lower cost for that as well. So let me know if that would be something you would be interested in as well. You can shoot me a PM and stuff. The Timber Cross says, yeah, that would be sick, and they want to see. That's awesome. So that's what my plan is. Because I just want to help you guys understand why origin stories are a necessity, and then give you some tools to show you how you can do it on your own, or if you want to partner with me at a lower cost. If you're going to be in Nashville at the end of this month at Funnel Hacking Live, I'm going to shoot some video there for some people, so I could get you in on that. Or if you want to go really deep and have like a high production value, really high, like my Friendly Giant Films video for your business, feel free to reach out to me and we can talk about that. So with that said, remember that you have to tell your origin story. You have many origin stories in your business, and you need to do it with a video because it lives on forever, works for you all day and all night. And I can help you craft that message and help you film it yourself, or we can work together on filming it together. But remember, when you share your story, good things happen. People see my origin story, my video, and they fall in love with Friendly Giant Films. And I always get comments like, I got chills. I want that for my business. You can have that same result and those same experiences with your audience saying that to you because they want to partner with you. Okay? So with that said, have an amazing, amazing day. Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys rock. And we will catch you on the next one. Share and like this if this was of value to you. And if you have any entrepreneurial or business friends, tell them that this is a video that they need to watch and would be super beneficial, even though it's a little bit longer. Have them add it as part of their study regimen and their personal growth stuff. And it's absolutely free. It's right here on Facebook. So with that said, I love all you guys, and we will talk to you later.